Hey guys, today we are going to talk about a pretty intense subject. Um, so if you need to turn it off, that's totally fine. But I thought today I would talk about suicide um, and what an impact it can have on people, and then also um, some numbers and some contact information to give to you in case anybody you know or yourself are ever thinking about suicide. Um, so, first, suicide is never a good option. Sometimes, when you're so down and depressed and you feel like nobody cares, you feel like people wouldn't notice if you were gone. Those kind of thoughts can be really intimidating and they can be really overwhelming, and it can seem like there's not an end in sight. But if you kind of go back in your mind and you think, if you remember a time that was kind of hard for you, that you thought it was just you were never going to get through it. Even like, okay, so being in high school, there was times when you're like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to, like, 4 years is so long. And then 10 years later, you look back, you're like, I hardly even remember being in high school. It's just so long ago. So I think, and of course, you're always going to have problems that stick with you. Um, but I think a lot of times there are things that everyone, that you can work through. And in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, it's not going to be so bad that you feel like you have to end your life. There's nothing worth ending your life. One of the most positive, or I don't know, it really put into perspective when I heard the quote, suicide doesn't end the pain, it just passes it to someone else. And that is so true. If you do commit suicide, it might end your pain, but just like that quote says, it just passes it off onto everyone else. Even if you feel like nobody cares, there are people that it is going to affect. I always think about the trauma and the experience for whoever it is finds a dead person. Like, that in itself is traumatic. And especially depending on, the way you decide to do it, can be really traumatic. I have worked with some clients who have found their parent. I had a friend in high school who found her neighbor in his yard after he had shot himself with a shotgun. And just talking to her about that. And she said, she didn't know him very well. They hadn't lived, next to each other very long. But she said it was one of the most, well, probably the most traumatic experiences of her life. And she was only 15 at the time. So just because you're in a lot of pain doesn't necessarily mean that you should pass that on to somebody else. I've known several people who have committed suicide. One of them I didn't know that well, but I can tell you it affected me a lot. Looking back on it, there are some much healthier ways I could have coped with that and probably should have coped with that. But I was young. It was the first person that I had known that was my age to die, really. So that was just, and I didn't even know him that well. It was a really awful experience for me. And it just affects your community. It affects the school that you go to. It's certainly going to affect your family, friends, neighbors, like just everybody. Your community as a whole is going to be affected by that kind of decision. So I would really encourage you to find other options. There are always other options. There's people you can call. There's people you can reach out to. There's places you can go. There's counseling. And a lot of times too, like human service centers around, if you can't afford to go see a counselor, they can help you out or at least point you in the right direction. A lot of places do like a sliding fee scale. So if you can't afford it, you don't get charged, or it's based off your income. So if you don't make very much, you don't get charged as much. And even reach out to a pastor. Any pastor will be willing to talk to you. Any friend, family member, reach out to them. Tell them that you're having these feelings. Tell them that you're considering this. And I bet you they will give you some alternatives. There are over 44,000 people in the United States each year that die from suicide. That's a lot of people. And for each completed suicide, there are 25 people that attempt it. I'm really bad at math, so I'm not going to do it, but that is a lot of people that attempt suicide. There are people that have attempted multiple times. So it's a really serious thing. And like I said, it doesn't just affect that person. It affects everyone around them. So I'm going to give you some numbers to call. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-8255. And you can call them 24 hours a day. There are people that are always going to answer. So whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning or, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it doesn't matter when you're feeling down and depressed. It doesn't matter any of that. Call that number. If you don't feel comfortable calling, you can text. Text CONNECT, 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 to the number 741-741. Okay, so you can call, text. There's also this app that I want to share with you. It's called My3. So My, like MY, and then the number 3. And it's an app you can get. I think they have it for Apple and then for Android. And you can plug in 3 of your top support people. So whether it's, a parent or your best friend or your sibling, cousin, whatever, you can pick 3 people so that they're right there in the app. If you want to, you can go to my3app.org and it plays a little video of kind of what the app is all about. So I would encourage you to check that out if you do have any suicidal thoughts. Before it turns into a plan, even if it's just thoughts, reach out to somebody. Tell them what you're going through. Find somebody. Because I guarantee you, if you look around, there are people that care about you. So, kind of a depressing subject today, but hopefully you wrote those numbers down. If you didn't, you can just Google National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, and it'll have it right there. So I'll give you the number again. It's 1-800-273-8255. So write that down. Or you can text CONNECT to 741-741. And then definitely check out that app. So hopefully you guys were a little bit encouraged by this video. I hope that you take all this into consideration and that if you're having these feelings, these thoughts, reach out to somebody. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend. Happy Friday.